the greatest archtop guitar maker ever.
Oh, my father would be so thrilled.
I'm shocked.
What did he pay for it?
It's probably the most sought-after model by bluegrass and folk players.
Really?
What secrets does this 19th century violin hold within its elegant curves and rich history? This violin was a treasured gift to the guest from his uncle.
And in 1958, I was invited to join the Worcester Youth Orchestra, and my great-uncle knew the director of the orchestra, Harry Levinson.
It is an exquisite instrument, crafted by François Breton in Mirecourt, France, around 1830. François was one of the most prominent of Mirecourt's violin makers. Several features point to its exceptional quality, including its meticulous craftsmanship and beautifully preserved varnish. According to the appraiser, violins made before 1859 typically featured a baroque or shorter neck, which adds historical significance to this piece.
After 1850, they modernized violins so that they could get more volume and better sound out of them. This is many steps above what the normal high school.
This violin is far superior to anything a typical high school violinist would acquire, standing as a testament to fine craftsmanship. Remarkably, it boasts some of the finest wood ever seen on a violin. Its standout feature is the flaming maple on the back, with such tight and striking patterns that it's as good as it gets.
Well, in 1958, $800 would have been a significant investment.
In today's market, this violin, with its stunning components and historical value, is estimated to be worth
with a price tag of between $15,000 and $20,000.
It was very generous, uncle.
There's something about the look of a 1965 Fender Jaguar and a 1964 Fender Stratocaster that screams retro cool. Featured on the show is a pair of musical instruments, a 1965 Fender Jaguar and a 1964 Fender Stratocaster. These guitars originally belonged to the guest's father, who played in a band with some of his friends.
He got tired of them being unreliable, so he decided to teach all of us kids an instrument.
Oh wow, so he made a family band.
He made a family band.
Out of you all.
Yes.
The Stratocaster is one of the most iconic guitars ever made, renowned for its versatility and timeless design. By 1964, it had already established its reputation as the go-to guitar for rock, blues, and pop music. This guitar has a 25.5-inch scale length, which provides a bright tone, excellent string tension, and impressive sustain. It features a 5-way pickup selector switch. Early models had a 3-way switch, allowing players to blend various pickup combinations. Despite being several decades old, this guitar shows only minor wear and would command a high price at auction.
In the $20,000 range.
Oh, really?
On the other hand, the 1965 Fender Jaguar was designed as Fender's top-of-the-line model when it was introduced in the early 1960s, appealing to surf rock players and beyond. Known for its shorter scale length and complex electronics, it was highly innovative for its time. Unlike the Fender Stratocaster, the Fender Jaguar has a 24-inch scale length, making it more comfortable for players with smaller hands or those who favor faster chord changes. This particular Jaguar features the Transition logo, as it was manufactured shortly after Fender was sold to CBS in 1965.
In '65, Leo Fender sold the company to CBS, and that's considered some sort of a benchmark as far as quality.
Among collectors, this model has become highly sought after over the years and is estimated to be worth.
These are in the $5,000 to $7,000 range.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is your big boy.
Yeah. We figured that as much.
Oh,
but,
did you?
I mean that it was
more expensive.
More expensive.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed that a dusty pawn shop find would turn out to be one of the most sought-after guitars in bluegrass history? According to the guest, she inherited this guitar from her brother, who originally purchased it from a pawn shop.
And the man at the pawn shop said that it was once owned by Hank Williams.
Remarkably, this guitar boasts exciting features, particularly its historical significance. It is a Martin D28, crafted in 1944. The appraiser, an experienced bluegrass player, described it as the holy grail for bluegrass enthusiasts.
1944 was the last year that they did scalloped bracings. Now, we can't show this on camera because we can't take your guitar apart, but when we were over at the musical instrument table, we got a mirror.
Inside the guitar's top and back are features indicating scalloped bracing, a detail that enhances its distinct sound and makes it highly sought after. One of its standout characteristics is the herringbone trim around the edges, adding to its visual and historical appeal. Additionally, the guitar is constructed with Adirondack spruce, Brazilian rosewood for the body, and its original inlay pattern remains intact.
in this little inset where the fingerboard comes out, because that would have never had finish put on it. And also, when you look through the sound hole, you'll see that there's a little bit of varnish down inside of it, so whoever sprayed it.
While the tuners have been replaced, a common modification for an instrument of this age, this does not diminish its value significantly.
The other thing that I noticed was that there's a real light overspray on it. Not much, nothing that would really be a deal killer.
At retail, considering its condition and rarity, this guitar is estimated to be worth.
This guitar would retail for $35,000 to $45,000.
It's kind of more than I thought. Well, that's great. That's unbelievable.
There's something magical about the sound of a finely crafted guitar. The folks at Vintage Guitar Magazine headquarters in Bismarck introduced the Roadshow to one local man, showcasing a terrific collection of Larson Brothers guitars.
I collect Larson Brothers guitars mainly because they got a unique tone like no other.
The appraisers are fortunate to get a look at a few of these timeless beauties.
We hear Gibson, we hear Martin all the time, but we rarely hear the name Larson.
The Larson brothers, Carl and August Larson, were Swedish immigrants who started a business in Chicago in the late 1800s. They're often regarded as unsung pioneers of American guitars because they were among the first builders, at least on a significant scale, to adapt the traditional gut-string flat-top guitar to withstand the tension of steel strings.
The Larsons made guitars under a number of different trade names: Stahl, Mauer, Prairie State, Euphonon, Stetson.
However, as far as is known, they never produced guitars under their own name. One notable example is a harp guitar with 6 sub-bass strings, made by the Larsons but marketed by W.J. Dyer and Brothers out of St. Paul, Minnesota. The large hollow arm and sub-bass strings produce a sonorous mellow tone, which was ideal for offsetting the treble-heavy sound of most mandolin ensembles.
It sure would round out the sound of all those mandolins.
This guitar, meticulously crafted around 1914, showcases the exceptional craftsmanship and innovative design principles characteristic of its era.
New harp guitars very much like this that are easier to tune and are pretty good.
Another notable Larson piece is a more traditional steel string guitar, remarkable for its size. At almost 19 inches across, it is larger than most guitars of its time. This guitar was made in the late 1930s or around 1940, near the end of the Larson brothers' careers. It was marketed under the Prairie State trade name and is now referred to as a Super Jumbo. How the Larsons described this guitar at the time is not known, but it remains one of the largest flat-top guitars ever made. Next to it is a guitar from about 10 years earlier, a standard-size guitar of that era. The Larsons took out several patents for their innovations to strengthen guitars, 2 of which are evident in this Super Jumbo model. One visible feature is the steel bar, which helps stabilize the body under the immense tension of the strings. The other feature, not visible, involves laminated braces that support the top. These braces had a hardwood layer sandwiched between 2 outer layers of spruce, making the top bracing significantly stiffer to withstand the tension. In a retail setting, this 1914 masterpiece would command a significant price of.
It's going to be about $5,500 retail.
This Super Jumbo guitar in a retail setting would also command a substantial price of.
This one's going to cost you $22,000 to $25,000 retail.
Really great to hear the story behind the Larson brothers and the unsung heroes of these steel string guitars. Thanks so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
The guitar is the only antique item that the guest possesses at home that he could present on a roadshow after he received a ticket.
I got it, I think, in 1965 at a Wild West pawn shop. I paid about $135 for it.
He has owned the guitar for about 52 years. The guest plays the guitar every day, but not this particular one. He has another guitar that he uses daily. He hasn't played this one for about 8 years because it has been stored away. 8 years ago, the guest discovered it was an antique, so he decided to stop playing it. It dates back to 1962 and is a Stratocaster, which is evident from the decal on the headstock. What makes it unusual is the custom color, Sonic Blue. Sonic Blue is one of Fender's rare custom colors. Fender sourced its colors from automotive paint manufacturer DuPont. This particular color was first used on 1956 Cadillacs, and Fender adopted it afterward. However, the color wasn't very popular. More popular custom colors included Olympic White, Candy Apple Red, and a darker shade of blue called Lake Placid Blue. What has really elevated these guitars into legendary status is the fact that John Lennon and George Harrison each owned one.
And there's session photos of those 2 guys playing matching Sonic Blue Stratocasters for that recording session. Now, George Harrison later repainted his with all kinds of fancy swirls.
This connection has made Sonic Blue the mythical color for an early 1960s Stratocaster.
That's what I've been offered, but...
So what were you offered for it?
I was offered $35,000 for it one time, and then I refused that, and they offered me $40,000.
In today's market, at a specialty vintage guitar auction, a fantastic guitar like this might have a significant value of.
A guitar like this might bring $45,000 and maybe even higher.
Presented here is a C.F. Martin guitar, originally crafted in New York in 1833. The guest's uncle, who went by the name Cowboy Slim, used to play live on the radio. This remarkable piece was given to the guest after his uncle's passing.
Yeah, years ago in the early 90s, they appraised it from pictures I sent off, and they said around $10,000, and they were interested in buying it if I wanted to sell it, which...
In the early 1990s, this elegant guitar was appraised using photographs and valued at $10,000. By the time this guitar was manufactured, the company had relocated to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, where they remain to this day.
42 means that it has the pearl around the body.
However, it does not have pearl inlay around the back and sides. It is also known as a 000, which refers to its body size. Interestingly, 1942 was the final year this specific model was produced.
1942 was the World War. They quit making fancy things for a while, so 1942 was the last year that they made this model.
While a more elaborate version, the 00045, was also made, the 00042 has become the rarest and most difficult to find among Martin's pearl-inlaid guitars. Nicknamed the poor man's pearl guitar, the 00042 was considered an inexpensive model from its inception. The pearl inlay is limited to the front, while the back showcases its Brazilian rosewood construction. It features standard ivoroid trim without additional pearl embellishments.
Tuners that they used back in the 30s, which was kind of the golden era of Martin guitars.
The tuners used during the 1930s, a golden era for Martin guitars, were unavailable during the war. Consequently, a lower-grade tuner was used. Remarkably, the original tuners have been preserved, which is highly desirable for maintaining the guitar's authenticity. On the front, the guitar features an ebony bridge and an ebony fretboard bound in ivoroid. This model gained popularity about 10 years ago, when Eric Clapton played a 00042 on his iconic Unplugged album. This guitar represents an extraordinarily clean and well-preserved example of the model. In a retail setting, this rare and exceptional piece would command a significant value of
between $65,000 and $75,000.
It's pretty good.
That sound good to you?
Yeah, not for sale, but it sounds good.
Oh, good.
In the world of fine string instruments, few names resonate as strongly as Ansaldo Poggi. Widely regarded as one of the greatest Italian luthiers of the 20th century, Poggi's instruments are celebrated for their superb craftsmanship.
He is one of the most important of the 20th century Italian makers. So he was a Stradivari enthusiast, and he studied with the man Giuseppe Fiorini, who bought all the tools and the remnants of the Stradivari workshop and gave them to the city of Stradivari.
Tonal richness, and adherence to the traditions of the Bolognese school of violin making. The model on display is one of Poggi's creations, crafted in 1967. The guest inherited this remarkable instrument from their grandfather, who acquired it directly from Poggi during a trip to Italy.
Took a detour to Bologna to meet up with the maker.
What did he pay for it?
The number that comes to mind as a kid was $600.
A label on the instrument, located near the base, bears the inscription Ansaldo Poggi in Bologna 1967, further enhancing its authenticity. Typical of Poggi's work, this viola was meticulously handcrafted, showcasing the precision and dedication of the renowned luthier. The body is made of fine-grained spruce, chosen for its exceptional resonance and tonal quality. The back features flamed maple, with a beautiful even grain that enhances both the instrument's aesthetics and its sound projection. Poggi also employed flamed maple in the peg box and scroll, demonstrating his attention to detail and commitment to quality. While many of Poggi's works are unsigned, leading to numerous copies circulating in the market, the appraiser is confident that this piece is original, given its outstanding characteristics. Additionally, the interior of the viola bears an inscription written in Poggi's own handwriting, further confirming its authenticity. Considering that this instrument is an original Poggi creation and boasts such exceptional features, it would be issued for
For insurance purposes, I would put this at $330,000.
Okay. 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 Well, I don't intend to sell it.
Today's guest showcased a violin and a French bow made by her grandfather, Nicolas Hines.
My mom and dad always called him Pops. He died in 1945, so I never got to meet him. But he made violins, and he repaired violins for the Philharmonic, the Boston Pops, the New York Symphony. He worked for a company for a while, and then he opened up his own shop. And when he passed away, my mother took one of his violins, and I played this violin since I was in 2nd grade. And
Hines was a violin maker active during the 18th century, primarily associated with the Mittenwald School of Luthiery in Bavaria, Germany. His violins are renowned for their exceptional craftsmanship, rich tonal quality, and adherence to traditional construction techniques.
He started training as a violin maker when he was 14 years old. So he studied with Frederick Koenig, who was a violin maker in New York City. And so your grandfather, from the age of 14 to 19 years old, trained with one of the top makers in the United States.
This particular violin bears a label on the inside with the inscription Nicolas Hines, violin maker and repairer, and is also branded with Hines's initials. As is typical of Hines's work, this violin is crafted from traditional materials. The belly is made of spruce, while the back and ribs are fashioned from flamed maple. It features beautifully carved pegs at the top and an intricately designed tailpiece. Due to the skill and reputation of its maker, in an auction, this violin would be worth.
I would value
my baby
at $12,000.
The guest also brought along her grandfather's tools, which he used to craft violins.
These are his knives for carving.
Correct.
And this little tiny plane is a violin maker's plane. It's used to do the fine arching that would be around the edges of the instrument.
Another fascinating item in this collection is a photograph of Nicolas Hines posing in front of his shop, with violins displayed in the background. The bow in this collection is a French bow, stamped with the word Paris, indicating its origin. In a retail setting, this bow would easily command a price of.
I would value this bow at $4,000.
holy Hannah, wowzer. Shut the front door, girl. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's a beautiful bow.
Wow.
What happens when a master luthier like Lloyd Law channels his expertise into redefining the design of a mandolin? You get the Gibson F5, a masterpiece of artistry and innovation from 1924, which we proudly have on display here. Lloyd Law was an American musician, instrument designer, and sound engineer. He is best known for his groundbreaking design work with the Gibson Mandolin Guitar MFG Co. Limited in the early 20th century.
Back in the teens and 20s, and he really was the father of the modern mandolin.
This mandolin features parallel tone bars, an elevated fingerboard, and 2 F-holes reminiscent of a violin. The top is meticulously carved from high-quality spruce, renowned for its strength and tonal responsiveness. The bridge is positioned near the center of the body and is internally tuned, an innovation introduced by Loa, making him the first to integrate this feature into a mandolin. Additionally, the instrument boasts an extended neck with 15 frets reaching the body, enhancing its playability. When played, the Gibson F5 produces a rich, balanced tone, characterized by deep lows, crisp highs, and a clear mid-range. Inside the mandolin, you'll find the Gibson label and its serial number, while the side bears a master model number, authenticating the instrument's originality. What further elevates the value of this exceptional piece is the fact that it comes with its original case. With all these remarkable features, the Gibson F5 is considered the holy grail of mandolins and is estimated to be worth.
These days, a correct asking price through a dealer in a shop would be about $175,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
This guitar is a time capsule, preserving the rich harmonies of a bygone era. According to the guest, this guitar was purchased from her father-in-law's brother, who was a professional musician.
I just know it's a 1938 Martin, and he played it all the time. He really enjoyed it. He didn't really play much professionally. He tried to do that.
The guitar shows minimal signs of heavy playing and, most importantly, has had no major work done on it.
The D18 model is probably the most sought-after model by bluegrass and folk players.
Oh, really?
It has a simple, unadorned design, free of excessive ornamentation. One key feature of this guitar is the back and sides, made of mahogany, an acoustically superior wood. The appraiser notes that this makes it particularly well suited for use with recordings and microphones. Furthermore, the front of the guitar is crafted from spruce sourced from the Adirondack Mountains. Inside the guitar there is a stamp on the center strip that reads C.F. Martin, Nazareth, Pennsylvania. In the upper block, where the neck is set, the model number D18 is stamped along with the serial number, which dates the guitar to 1938.
And 1938 was a pivotal year for Martin where they actually changed the bracing, the internal bracing on the guitar.
This guitar features advanced bracing, adding to its value and appeal.
So I'm just going to feel quickly right in here, and I feel that that X, where the bracing crosses, is very near the sound hole.
However, the top has been lightly overcoated with a clear varnish to address some wear, but this is not considered a significant issue. In today's market, the replacement value of this guitar, with its advanced bracing, is estimated at
would be about $28,000 to $30,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my. He would be so proud. It's such an honor for him. It really is. He was such a great guy.
This presented guitar is a 1956 Gibson L5c, a model celebrated for its craftsmanship and tonal quality. Once owned by the stepfather of a guest who was formerly a guitarist for the Mills Brothers, this instrument holds both musical and historical significance. Norman Brown was the guitarist for the legendary Mills Brothers, serving in that capacity for over 30 years, beginning in 1936. Brown's tenure with the Mills Brothers solidifies the guitar's connection to one of the most influential vocal groups in music history. Key features of the Gibson L5c include its strings, fingerboard, and soundbox, all of which contribute to its renowned playability. Crafted from premium woods, the choice of materials enhances both its tonal resonance and the overall playing experience. The guitar's meticulous construction reflects Gibson's commitment to quality and performance during the mid-20th century. Its provenance, combined with its exceptional craftsmanship, makes it a highly desirable collector's item. This piece is expected to sell for a significant amount of
$16,000, perhaps $18,000 at auction.
That's a shock. I didn't really expect it quite worth that much.
Its rich history, superior build, and connection to an iconic era of music make it a remarkable artifact of musical heritage. Step back to 1953, when a legendary luthier's hands brought this custom D'Angelico archtop jazz guitar to life, a masterpiece of its era. The guest's father purchased this guitar for him in 1953.
Went on from there. I was on the road for a few years with a few bands, and now I'm here.
Yeah.
This John D'Angelico archtop jazz guitar shows signs of normal playing wear, adding character to its storied history. John D'Angelico was a luthier from New York City, noted for his handmade archtop guitars and mandolins. Remarkably, it still retains the original sales receipt, handwritten by John D'Angelico himself at the time of purchase.
In John D'Angelico's hand from when your father purchased this,
right,
on October 19th, 1953.
Every D'Angelico guitar was essentially custom-made, and this one is no exception.
And John D'Angelico is, by acclaim, the greatest archtop guitar maker ever.
This particular guitar features a medium neck with a custom dark finish and originally came with a pickup, although it is no longer present due to the disintegration of the pickguard. Everything about this guitar represents top-tier craftsmanship. Notably, this instrument was crafted during 1953, widely regarded as the golden era for D'Angelico guitars. At retail, this vintage masterpiece would be valued at
would sell in the range of $30,000 to $35,000 at retail. Very nice.
With a serial number of just 0047, this 1954 Fender Stratocaster is one of the earliest models ever made, marking it as a true icon of music history.
Bought this 14 years ago from the original owner's oldest son.
According to the appraiser, the best way to date an older Stratocaster is by examining the serial number, found on the back plate at the base of the neck. This serial number confirms it is the 47th Stratocaster ever produced, excluding a few prototypes.
That would actually place it in the year 1954.
The guitar remains nearly all original, with only the knobs and pickup covers replaced due to natural decomposition from years in storage.
And have you got any of the originals of those?
Right, they just kind of fell apart, though. They were so brittle, so I do have the pieces,
though.
They do
tend to decompose in the case.
Made from ash, the original wood used for these models, the craftsmanship of this piece is remarkable. Its ash body is perfectly quarter-sawn, a rare feature that showcases an extraordinary level of precision. Unlike typical examples with visible grain rings, this wood resembles the precision seen in violins or acoustic guitars.
You see these absolutely straight grain. Right. Any idea of the value?
I paid $3,000 for it. I paid a lot of money for it.
This attention to detail makes it a standout example of early Fender quality. The Stratocaster's design and condition make it a highly sought-after collectible. Today at auction, this 1954 Fender Stratocaster is valued at
between $50,000 and $70,000. And I think that not too much would be taken off just for the knobs and the pickup covers being replacements. But
the guest who presented this item on the show inherited it from his father, who purchased it in 1953.
From a pawn shop in Dallas. He scraped up money and went hitchhiked there and bought it at a pawn shop.
This model features a striking butterscotch blonde finish, which has become one of its signature characteristics. The authenticity of this Fender Esquire can be confirmed by examining the serial number stamped on the bridge. The Esquire's pickup includes pole pieces that are evenly spaced across the top. One notable feature of the 1952 Esquire, a transitional model, is the combination of slotted screws securing the pickguard, along with two Phillips-style screws positioned at either end of the control plate. On the body of this instrument, there is an inscription reading TG, representing the initials of Tadeo Gomez. Gomez, a renowned Mexican instrument maker, was celebrated for his exceptional skill in crafting high-quality string instruments.
Tadeo Gomez, who was almost by now a legendary neck carver for Fender, worked there a long, long time.
He earned recognition for blending traditional techniques with innovative craftsmanship. The neck of this particular Fender Esquire was carved by the legendary Tadeo Gomez, which significantly enhances its value. Vintage musical instruments like this 1952 Fender Esquire are highly sought after, and at auction, this piece would be worth
probably closer to $30,000 because it's so clean. Wow. So a collector would mean a great deal.
Okay.
Every instrument tells a story, and this violin whispers of Italian elegance and mastery.
Possessions including this violin. He was actually, I guess, he was in the Army. And apparently he met her right at the crossing. And
this is a remarkable violin that captivates the gaze and commands admiration. Inside, it bears a label of Romeo Antoniazzi, a name synonymous with highly regarded instruments.
Now, the heyday of this shop was right around 1900. And Romeo Antoniazzi's instruments are highly regarded.
However, this particular violin wasn't crafted by Antoniazzi himself, but was sold through his shop. Italian workshops of the time often affixed their labels to instruments made by other skilled makers to enhance their perceived value, a common practice in Italy. The appraiser confidently identified the actual maker of this violin based on unique design elements that deviate from Antoniazzi's style. These elements align precisely with the work of Claudio Gambarini of Bologna, who crafted this violin around 1920. Noteworthy is the violin's raised edge, known as a beaded edge, a feature that adds to its allure.
How rounded off it is, and how it's thicker than the rest of the plate.
Equally intriguing is the wood used, a northern Italian species called oppio, known for its tight curl, fine figure, and exceptional acoustic properties.
Gambarini also used a varnish that was laid on quite thin.
The elongated peg box, culminating in an oversized scroll eye, further sets the instrument apart.
All of these are recognizable traits of Gambarini's work.
With its exceptional condition and craftsmanship, this violin holds a significant retail value of
at about $28,000 to $35,000.
That's really interesting.
This classic guitar was given to the guest's father for his 11th birthday in October of 1962. It is a left-handed Stratocaster that was custom ordered.
However, not by my grandfather, who bought it for him by somebody else who didn't have the money to pay for it. And so it was available just sort of on a fluke.
Moreover, the guest presented a photograph of his father posing with the Stratocaster.
So popular at that time, all the great rock bands of the time, the Ventures, the Beach Boys, they all used this guitar.
What made the guitar a little bit more unusual was the fact that it is a left-handed model. That said, another thing that made it particularly interesting was the fingerboard. It is what is called a slab fingerboard, which was later changed to a different style, making it even more exceptional. The serial number on the instrument can tell the year it was made, and it is well known that it was made in 1962, as the guest possesses a sales brochure from that year. The 1962 sales brochure indicates that this particular model of Stratocaster was priced at $289, reflecting its exceptional craftsmanship and appeal. This is what we call a custom-ordered instrument, as the color, Olympic white, was a custom color. It was a special order. Additionally, this guitar is in almost perfect shape. There's very little wear on the instrument at all. This is a very light guitar, which makes it easy to play. This instrument is highly desirable today due to its exceptional playability and the rich history behind it. However, being a left-handed model, it makes it a little harder to sell because there are fewer buyers. The appraiser consulted with his colleagues about the item, and it is believed that, in this condition, with the original case the guest possesses, everything at retail would be valued at
$48,000 on it.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
What we have here is a vintage Fender, purchased brand new by the guest in 1961 and preserved in pristine original condition. Looking at the pictures the guest presented, he appeared to be a real hipster back in 1961. The guest is the guitar's original owner, having acquired it when it was first released. Guitars, which are primarily made of tone woods like mahogany or maple, metal for strings and hardware, and plastic for components like pick guards, are designed for optimal sound quality and durability. He also presented the hat he wore in the picture, which is fantastic. This is the original Fender with the hang tag, also known as a bucklet. It was fortunate that the guest held on to the hang tag. The guest has something special in the neck, called bird's eye maple. What makes this so remarkable is that it has never been refinished, and none of the parts have ever been changed. The pickguard has taken on a greenish hue, and all the control knobs and pickups are exactly the same color, fading slightly with age.
He wanted to give me $2,500 for it.
Okay. How long ago was that?
About 9 years ago.
The present value of a guitar like this on the open market would be...
It's going to be about $18,000 to $20,000.
Oh, wow. I should have bought 2 of them.
This violin is a bridge between centuries, echoing the legacy of the Gallano family's unmatched craftsmanship. The guest inherited this remarkable violin from her uncle, who originally owned it.
I started to enjoy it when I was in high school, and then I played it through college. And recently, I've just played it in my daughter's preschool and grade school, and last December
This extraordinary instrument originates from the Gallano family of Naples and dates back to around 1800 to 1810. The Gallano family was a renowned dynasty of luthiers whose craftsmanship dominated the violin-making world from the early 1700s to the late 1800s. According to the appraiser, the Gallanos were the preeminent family of makers in Naples during this period. What makes this violin particularly intriguing is that it was likely a collaboration between 2 generations of the family. Inside the instrument, a label reads Nicola Gallano, referring to the most famous and possibly the most prolific member of the family. However, this violin also reflects the craftsmanship of his sons, Joseph and Antonio, making it a true family masterpiece. Remarkably, the violin is in excellent condition. It is a classic Gallano model with a powerful broad arching, a hallmark of their exceptional designs.
That's what makes this violin always a favorite for professional players who are kind of on a budget or just starting.
The top of the violin is believed to be made from Italian red spruce, a wood prized for its acoustic properties.
As we go up, we see a lot of wear to the front of this scroll, and that gives us a clue to its age.
The back and sides, crafted from Yugoslavian maple, feature a stunning 2-piece design, with much of the original varnish still intact despite its age. Notably, the area at the back, where it frequently slid in and out of its case, shows a smooth, worn flatness, a subtle sign of its long journey through time. Adding to its value is a bow crafted in France by the renowned shop of Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume, considered the most distinguished violin dealer of his era.
He had a whole crew of bow makers. Among them, which was his favorite, was Francois-Nicolas Voisin.
The bow bears Vuillaume's stamp, and its bell-shaped head identifies it as an early work by Francois-Nicolas.
The origin of this bow is to look at the actual stamp on it. And for that, we have to turn it upside down because that's the way the French stamp their bows. So this being an early work of Francois-Nicolas Voisin,
in its current condition, the bow alone would fetch an estimated price of...
I'm going to value the bow at $12,000 to $14,000.
As for the violin, a true testament to the Gallano family's legacy and artistry, it is conservatively estimated to command an impressive price of
$60,000 to $80,000, and that would be an auction value.
From the hands of a cowboy band guitarist to the stage of music legends, this 1952 Fender Esquire is a true piece of history. The guest's father-in-law, who played in a cowboy band during the 50s and 60s, originally owned this Fender Esquire.
Played it for several years, and then it kind of got put in the basement for about 50 years, and he passed away a couple years ago and gave it to my husband.
Unlike the Telecaster, the Esquire is fitted with only one pickup, which gives it that distinctive twangy sound that country western players adored. This very guitar is the one that Stephen Stills, David Bromberg, and Bruce Springsteen built their careers on. Dating these guitars can be tricky, but one method involves carefully examining the instrument's internal features.
Inside, but we don't need to do that today. We're going to sort of unweave a little puzzle here that's sort of put together.
According to the appraiser, this guitar is remarkable for its original bridge cover, known as the ashtray, which is still intact. The bridge also bears the serial number 0349, indicating it's quite early in Fender's production.
Between 1950 and 1952, this series of serial numbers pops up, but we're not sure where in the equation.
Yeah.
If you turn the guitar over, you'll notice that unlike later models, there's no serial number on the neck plate, further confirming its early production. Additionally, the Phillips head screws used in the neck bolts point to a 1952 build date.
Because prior to 1952, straight screws. Straight screws, like the screws used on the pickguard. Fabulous condition on this instrument.
For insurance purposes, given its history and condition, this guitar is valued at.
On this guitar, $35,000.
Oh my gosh. Okay. My husband will be very happy.
That's right.
Presented here is a violin that has been cherished in the Guest family for decades, originally belonging to the Guest's father. The Guest's father had a long and illustrious career in the Air Force, eventually rising to the rank of Major General. The exact amount paid for the violin is unknown, but it was most likely acquired during the mid-1970s, coinciding with one of his tours in Germany. Although it was obviously played at some point, this violin was never repaired and has been mostly displayed on the wall.
I think that the lion carving for the top of the peg box makes it really, really unique. The thing that we loved too was the wood.
The violin features a very striking pattern, and it appears to have been well loved. This is evident from the creases in the fingerboard, created by the strings as it was played over the years. It is clear that this violin has been played extensively and cherished deeply, as it remains beautiful and in remarkably pure condition.
There are a couple of labels that are inside, but they're in a language that I don't read, so I was hoping that maybe someone could decipher it. My dad collected a lot of musical instruments throughout his career.
The Guest's father repaired stringed instruments and even made some of his own. However, this particular violin must have been especially dear to him since he kept it rather than selling it. The appraiser is impressed by the fact that the Guest's father became a luthier and a violin maker. This indicates he had the expertise to recognize the exceptional qualities of this instrument. The back of the violin is made of maple, also referred to as bird's eye maple, which was a common material during a specific period in German violin-making history. This feature helps place the violin geographically and historically. There are two labels inside the violin. One is a repair label from H. Vault in Vienna, dated 1879, which explicitly states it is for a repair. The second label, written in Latin, bears the name Niccolo Amati, one of the great founders and originators of the violin in Cremona, northern Italy, in the 1600s or 1700s. A third label was also found glued inside the rib on the bass side. This label is upside down and identifies the maker of the violin as Matias Hornsteiner. The label reads Matias Hornsteiner, Lauten und Geigenmacher, Mittenwald, 1781.
They were the earliest of the makers. Well, there were two families, the Clotses and the Hornsteiners, and the Hornsteiners were really highly regarded. And Matias Hornsteiner II is considered to be the top-notch member of the Hornsteiner family.
The violin, in exceptional condition, retains its original peg box featuring the intricate lion's head carving. H. Voigt stamp can still be seen on the side of the neck, a detail he must have been incredibly proud of.
We believe that he changed the neck to modernize the violin in 1879. Oh, my father would be so thrilled.
This instrument is a gorgeous and pristine example of Matias Hornsteiner's craftsmanship from 1781. In a retail setting, this classic violin would be appraised at a substantial value of.
We would put a retail value on it of $20,000.
Oh my, really? Really?
That's right, and that's conservative.
They say the label tells the story, but with this violin, the mystery lies beyond the signature.
And my instructor told me that I needed a better violin than the one I had, and we paid $600 for it, which was a lot of money.
This violin is a captivating piece of history and craftsmanship. Inside, a label reads J.B. Violin, Paris, 1861, complete with a signature.
Well, I'm a big fan of the work of J.B. Violin. He started work in Paris about 1820. He died in 1875.
J.B. Villon was a French luthier, businessman and inventor and winner of many awards. However, the appraiser noted an intriguing contradiction. The signature is only on the label, not written inside the instrument, which deviates from Villon's known practices. In 1861, Villon didn't include dates on his labels, opting instead for numbered markings.
He didn't put his date on the label. All he did was number them, and we know that certain numbers correspond to certain dates.
Despite this anomaly, the violin showcases remarkable French craftsmanship. The appraiser was particularly struck by the flawless detailing, especially in how the purfling flows elegantly into the corners, a testament to exceptional skill.
The conclusion that I came to is that indeed this is a French violin, and the date on the label is not far off, but I would put it more after the death of J.B. Villon.
Dated posthumously to around 1880, after Villon's death, the violin reflects the work of artisans who continued his legacy, including the renowned Derazay.
And there were some workers that worked for Villon who continued working.
While the appraiser couldn't definitively attribute the violin to Derazay, its quality is undoubtedly on par with his work. In excellent condition, this extraordinary violin holds a retail value of.
I would value this violin in the retail market today at $25,000.
Oh, wow. That's great. That is great.
Like a time capsule of sound, this vintage guitar holds within it the echoes of a bygone era, waiting to be rediscovered. Like a treasured family heirloom, this guitar holds a special place in the guest's heart, its history woven into the fabric of her husband's life, who lovingly owned it since the 1940s.
He was a cowboy, and he played the guitar. And he was a musician.
He did play.
Yeah, he could make that sing. And he played it all his life.
The guest takes a trip down memory lane, recalling her husband's favorite moments with the guitar.
He'd put the guitar on the back of his saddle and take it down and sing to the dudes when they'd get down below.
The origins of this guitar can be traced back to the C.F. Martin Company, a renowned manufacturer based in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, where it was built in 1938. In 1833, Christian Frederick Martin, a German immigrant with a passion for music and craftsmanship, founded the C.F. Martin & Company. With a commitment to quality and innovation, Martin set out to create instruments that would inspire generations of musicians. As the years passed, Martin's guitars gained a reputation for their exceptional tone, playability, and beauty. The company's pioneering spirit led to the development of new guitar designs, shapes, and sizes, including the iconic Dreadnought, which revolutionized the music industry. Through the decades, C.F. Martin & Company has remained family-owned and operated, with a dedication to preserving traditional craftsmanship while embracing modern techniques. C.F. Martin had a clever way of naming their guitars, using a code that indicated the style and size of each model.
First it was the size by the 3 zeros, and then a hyphen, and then 42 was the style. And the style of this guitar was one of the highest that they sold.
Dating back to the 1918 to 1943 production period, this C.F. Martin 00042 guitar exemplifies the finest materials and attention to detail characteristic of this esteemed model.
All inlaid with abalone pearl. We have wonderful abalone cat's eyes and snowflakes that run up the ebony fingerboard.
Given its exceptional condition and reputation as a premier instrument, this guitar is likely to appeal to discerning collectors with a value range of.
This would easily sell between $20,000 and $25,000.
Oh. Yes, it's not for sale, but it's nice to know that.
Good.
Crafted in an era of war and resilience, this cornet holds echoes of a legacy that transcends time, etched in its every curve and detail. This cornet originally belonged to the guest's great-great-grandfather, George Warren, and has been passed down through the family. It was presented to him by the 15th Regiment of Indiana. According to the appraiser, this is an E.G. Wright rotary valve cornet which debuted in 1861. Among its notable features are the string-action rotary valves, 4 in total. Additionally, it is a large bore cornet, characterized by its slightly wider body compared to the more slender standard cornet design.
And you can see here the string rotary valves, which are actuated by these levers. And this one has the most superb engraving here.
One of the valves showcases exquisite engraving, while the bell proudly bears the maker's mark, made by Wright.
Here at the bottom it says E.G. Wright, and it has the original mouthpiece in the original carved wood case lined in felt.
Even more remarkable is that the cornet still retains its original price list from E.G. Wright. E.G. Wright was a Boston-based brass instrument maker in the 19th century.
I consider E.G. Wright to be the foremost maker of brass wind instruments in the United States in this period.
During this period, most cornets were made of either brass or German silver, nickel silver. However, this particular piece is a presentation-grade item crafted in silver, making it especially valuable. For insurance purposes, given its extraordinary condition, this heirloom cornet would be valued at
about $35,000.
Yeah, that would surprise me.
Dating back to the 19th century, this exquisite violin exemplifies the craftsmanship of its era, with intricate details and a rich tonal history. In a fascinating twist of fate, the guest's youthful passion for the violin, which led to the acquisition of this stunning instrument, gave way to a new harmony, a career in engineering.
I got it in 1962, and it cost about $1,200, a lot of money, especially for somebody like myself.
Initially attributed to the early 18th century, this violin's provenance was later revised following an appraisal, revealing it to be an early 19th century reproduction. Even though it's not as old as originally thought, the appraiser still considers this violin to be a significant instrument with a great history. The violin bears a label indicating its maker as Hendrik Willems of Ghent, Netherlands, dated 1728. Like a puzzle piece falling into place, the violin's true identity is revealed, a creation of the revered Kypers school where Netherlands' finest luthiers once plied their trade. In the late 18th century, the Kypers family, a dynasty of skilled craftsmen, began to make a name for themselves in the world of violin making. With each successive generation, their skills honed and their reputation grew. The Kypers school became synonymous with excellence, attracting apprentices from far and wide. Under the guidance of master luthiers like Petrus Kypers and his sons, the Kypers school flourished, producing instruments that were sought after by musicians and collectors alike. Their violins, violas, and cellos were renowned for their exquisite craftsmanship, rich tonal colors, and impeccable playability. With the precision of a detective, the appraiser assembled the clues that confirmed this violin's status as a genuine Kypers school masterpiece.
Right back here, you can see that there's a certain kind of a dry scaling pattern that's very typical of the varnish of the Dutch school. So they used a glue ground underneath the varnish.
A further distinctive characteristic of this violin, consistent with the Kypers school tradition, is the meticulous purfling that adorns its body.
Purfling is done in a very masterful way, and it's extremely difficult to do. It's a very bold, very black purfling, but it's done beautifully.
Ultimately, the appraiser's expert assessment confirms this violin as a rare and valuable find, dating back to the 1820s, with its authenticity and conditioning warranting a significant retail value of.
Today, a conservative value in the retail market would be $25,000.
Oh, great. That's a lot more than I thought it was.
What we have on the display table today is a Fender Telecaster, inherited by our guest from his brother. This guitar was manufactured by the Fender Company in 1953 and features a black pickguard.
This one's from 1953. In late 54, they changed to the white pickguard rather than the black.
Later models were equipped with white pickguards. The guitar's bridge has a cover commonly referred to as the ashtray, due to its resemblance to a literal ashtray when removed. Beneath the bridge cover, there is a serial number that serves as authentication for this piece. It boasts a blonde nitrocellulose lacquer finish, allowing the natural wood grain to shine through. Additionally, the guitar's neck is crafted from a single piece of maple, a hallmark of early Telecasters, offering excellent resonance and sustain. The fretboard has a 7.25-inch radius, characteristic of vintage Fenders, making it ideal for comfortable chord playing. Interestingly, the guitar comes with its original pressed fiberboard case, which significantly enhances its value. Another item accompanying the guitar is a deluxe amplifier, renowned for its warm, tube-driven sound. The 1953 Fender Telecaster is a highly collectible instrument, cherished for its iconic design. This collection would undoubtedly be valued at.
It could sell for at least $30,000 in today's market.
I would have never. It's definitely going to move out of the closet somewhere a little bit more important now. I know for sure it's going to move up the family line a lot. I'm shocked. I never had any clue. To just know what I've got now, it just makes it that much nicer.
The guest's husband acquired the violin in 1965 from a violin shop in Washington, D.C.
He couldn't afford it at the time, and then in the meantime we got married and things got a little better. He went to get it, and it was gone. It had been sold.
Before the guest met him, he had seen the violin in the same shop and wanted to buy it, but couldn't afford it at the time.
But as years went on, about maybe 5 years later, he got a call from the shop and said, "That violin is back."
The guest's husband was a professional player. He was a violinist all his life and also a teacher. This violin bears its original label, Nicolas Lupo à Paris, 1798. Lupo was probably the most famous of all French violin makers and was often referred to as the Stradivari of France. He moved to Paris in 1798 after working in Orléans, not far from Paris. This is a very nice copy of a golden period Stradivari violin. It is an example that the appraiser needed to spend quite a lot of time with when he first examined it, trying to decide if it was authentic. Lupo is a difficult maker to identify because everyone in France during the 19th century was trying to copy his work. It has several characteristics attributed to Lupo. One of them is the scribe line that he used to mark the center line of the instrument, which he did not remove.
That as a maker, he used to scribe the center line of the instrument, but he didn't remove. Most makers remove it when they finish the head.
The purfling consists of a sandwich of 3 strips of wood. It is a decorative strip around the perimeter of the top and back of the violin. The appraiser noted that the dark part of the outer lines is whalebone. Whalebone is a characteristic material used by Lupo. The varnish is a very dark, vibrant brownish-red color, which is typical for Lupo. The back and sides are made from very select maple, often called tiger stripe maple or curly maple. The sides are also maple, and the front is spruce.
But it perhaps would have been worth closer to $200,000 if it didn't have the wear and these condition issues, especially any crack in the back devalues the violin by quite a lot.
There are a few condition issues, mainly a crack that extends all the way up, along with round patches which detract from the value. The bow is marked with the number 7. It is a very fine French violin bow from the second half of the 19th century, from the school of Dominique Picard. However, it was not made by Dominique Picard himself, but by one of the workers who followed his style. In a retail setting, this classic violin would be priced at a significant value of
$140,000.
The fine French violin bow would be valued at a retail price of
valued more in the range of $20,000, so $7,000 was a little cheap.
Wow, that's good.
Thanks for bringing
Thank
it.
you
It
very
is.
much.
Music talent is often recognized from a young age, with only a few exceptional children standing out. This guest's journey began with inspiration from her teacher, leading her to purchase a beautiful violin back in 1963.
It cost $180. At that point, I was having to pay for the music lessons, and my parents didn't have the $180, so they told me, if you can come up with half the money, we'll get it for you. We'll make up for the rest.
It was a second-hand find, and while the violin came without a bow, her father, who also played the violin as a child, gave her one to complete the set.
When you buy a violin, it doesn't necessarily come with a bow. My father said, well, I played the violin as a boy, and I've got an old bow. Why don't you just use my bow?
But what might seem like an ordinary violin holds some surprising secrets. Inside the violin is a label that sparks confusion about its true origins.
It has a label on the inside, and it says Salvatore Rossani, Milano, 1910. So one thinks immediately that it was made in Italy.
Though it's labeled as being made in Italy, the appraiser quickly recognizes it as being a German-made instrument. This was a time when German violin makers sometimes used Italian labels to give their instruments a marketing edge. Despite the mix-up, this violin is still an excellent example of early 20th century German craftsmanship. In today's market, a violin like this would fetch an estimated
A violin like this these days sells for between $5,000 and $7,000.
Very good.
Now let's talk about the bow, the real game changer in this appraisal. Originating from France, this bow takes the appraiser back to the golden age of French bow making.
The French were to bows as the Italians were to violins.
It was crafted in the early 20th century and features a brand on its handle, revealing its exceptional value. This bow was made by the renowned French bow maker Eugène Nicolas Sartori. Sartori was celebrated for his consistent quality, making his bows a favorite among musicians for generations. A conservative estimate for this premium Sartori bow is around.
And I would say a conservative retail figure would be $20,000.
Oh my goodness.
The guest bought this guitar from a gentleman he worked with, who had purchased it from a guitar instructor in Ogden, Utah. The piece, dated 1957, was acquired by the guest in 1960 or 1961. He has enjoyed playing it and has taken lessons using it. This Stratocaster, manufactured by the Fender company founded by Leo Fender, was produced in 1957, though it may also date to 1958. It has a blonde finish, although it is understood that they didn't begin making the blonde finish until 1958. The finish could be mistaken for the Olympic white finish, but a lot of the grain can be seen through it. This detail makes it feel more like a blonde finish rather than the Olympic white. The Olympic white finish was a more opaque white, while this finish allows the grain to show through more prominently. The serial number indicates it is from sometime in 1957, although it is from the later part of the year. It features a well-crafted neck that offers exceptional playability. The piece appears original without conducting a thorough inspection, but the only modification made has been the replacement of the strings. It features a maple neck, a maple fingerboard, black dot inlays, an original decal, untouched original pickups, an original whammy bar, and an original tweed case with red lining. It seems to include a Fender Deluxe amplifier from the same period, which appears to be in decent condition.
How much did you pay for it back in 1961?
I paid, as much as I can recall, about $300.
In the past year or so, the value of this model has skyrocketed. All solid-body Fender and Gibson guitars have seen significant increases in value. This classic piece, in its current condition, would be valued at a retail level. On a scale of 1 to 10, with the case, strap, and guitar being original at approximately
$50,000 to $60,000.
Oh, my word. Takes my breath.
Every great musician starts with a great instrument, and this 1957 Fender Stratocaster is one worth remembering. This magnificent instrument originally belonged to the guest father, a man deeply passionate about music.
He grew up in a family that had a lot of music in the home, and he played many instruments. He always aspired to have an electric guitar from, I think, the time they were probably invented.
The instrument is a Fender Stratocaster, a legendary guitar that debuted in 1957. Its features include a maple neck with a distinctive skunk stripe, a hallmark of pre-1958 designs. Another defining characteristic tracing its origin to 1957 is the two-tone sunburst finish, which remains vibrant and striking.
This finish, instead of being black to red to yellow, is black to yellow.
Additionally, it boasts a non-laminated plate over the tremolo area on the back, a feature typical of its era. The maple fingerboard at the front adds to its allure, and the neck, when removed, reveals a date stamp of 857, confirming its authenticity.
Inside of here, there's a date of 857, and that matches with everything else that I saw on the guitar before I did that, so it made me feel comfortable in thinking it is that.
The pick guard is period correct, a non-laminated white guard with screws that appear untouched since its creation. Every element of this guitar, from the parts to the patina, speaks of its originality and remarkable preservation. At auction, this extraordinary guitar, considering its excellent condition, would command an estimated value of,
I would guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $17,000. And it's a nice thing. You're very lucky.
Oh my gosh. Oh, my dad is smiling somewhere.
So.
That's terrific.
What secrets lie within this family heirloom violin, played for years at WJR Radio and now steeped in history? This is the violin the guest grandfather played in his orchestra at WJR Radio for years, a cherished family heirloom passed down through generations. The guest also brought 2 fabulous photos showing the orchestra recording at WJR, offering a glimpse into its storied past.
Recording at WJR, but they didn't write the names on the back of the pictures, so I don't know who they are.
According to the appraiser, the violin has a noticeable crack running along the belly of the instrument. Inside, a label reads Jean-Laurent Clément, a maker in Paris. Jean was one of the premier Parisian luthiers and experts of his generation.
He was a violin maker himself, but he employed some of the top makers of the period.
However, the appraiser noted that the quality of the craftsmanship, materials, and varnish are absolutely typical of Georges Charnot, suggesting it may be his work. This violin dates back to around 1820, and the wood is remarkably classic. Spruce for the belly and maple for the back, ribs, neck, and peg box, materials used in violins since the 1500s.
The peg box, it would be maple. It's very beautiful maple.
Adding to its charm is a stunning alligator leather case, exceptionally well preserved.
The leather has been preserved. It's also just very sharp and very much of the period of these pictures.
On the retail market, this violin would command an extraordinary price of,
in the retail market, would sell for at least $30,000 to $40,000.
Oh, wow.
The alligator case alone would be valued at $350.
Would sell for at least $350.
Oh, okay.
So just the case itself, I think, is significant in the world of cases.
Wow.
An exquisite cello with a phony label, a bow of gold mountings, and a legacy of craftsmanship, this masterpiece carries the signature of the Clots family and a story worth thousands. The appraiser was captivated by this exquisite cello, attributed to the renowned Clots family. Clots was arguably the most prominent violin-making dynasty in Mittenwald, Germany.
This has a Clots label in it, which I'm not going to show the camera because it's actually a phony label.
While the cello bears a label reading George Clots, it is believed not to be his work, but rather crafted by another member of the Clots family. Distinctive Clots characteristics, such as the elegant sound holes and the beautifully carved back, are evident in this instrument.
The scroll was very German of the period, very Mittenwald, with this wonderful extra little turn.
Showcasing the family's signature craftsmanship. According to the guest, her family acquired this remarkable cello for her in the late 1950s, making it a cherished heirloom.
We were in Chicago and I needed to graduate from a three-quarter cello to a full-size cello. And we bought this. We paid probably about $750 or $800, which was a lot of money at that time.
Additionally, the bow accompanying the cello was purchased in 1969 from a shop in Philadelphia. It was crafted by W.E. Hill & Sons, a prestigious London firm renowned for its violin and bow-making expertise. Notably, the bow features gold mountings, further emphasizing its quality and value. For retail purposes, the bow, in its excellent condition, would be valued at
perhaps between $4,000 and $5,000.
The cello, given its rarity and status as a professional-grade instrument, would command an impressive price of
$18,000 to $22,000.
It was a good investment.
This classic violin was given to the guest's family by the guest's aunt and was later inherited by the guest. The guest's family believed that it is actually from the 16th century because it has a label that says Caspar Tiefenbrucker 1595.
Got a label that says Gaspar Tiefenbrucker 1519, and it's something that your great aunt played in recital.
Yes,
and
she was
and
quite a musician.
And it's been in your family all this time.
This violin features a very unusual style. Instead of a spiral scroll, it has a carved man's head. Some believe that the head represents the maker, Caspar Tiefenbrucker. The carving on this example is quite fine, especially the details in the beard, the eyes, and all the facial features, including the hooked nose. There is actually an etching of Caspar Tiefenbrucker that this carving appears to be based on. Toward the bottom of the instrument, the beautifully inlaid flamed maple fingerboard is a notable feature. Moving down the face of the violin, various relief carved motifs are visible. On the sides, the wood is inlaid to resemble an old city scene. On the back, the design is striking, demonstrating outstanding craftsmanship and meticulous attention to detail. It features 3 types of decorations: relief carving at the top, an oil painting, and intricate inlaid woods that depict a scene of an ancient city. This piece is not actually from the 16th century. It is a French instrument made in the 1800s, likely by the shop of Desiré in Mirecourt, France. The piece includes a case and a bow. Examining the bow, it appears rather plain and seems to have not been used for quite some time as the hair is broken.
As we take it out, we see that it's actually a very fine bow. In its simplicity, it's got a certain elegance.
The bow was probably made in the late 1940s in the shop of Elgin Sartori in Paris. It features mother-of-pearl inlay in the eye of the frog and beautiful sterling silver fittings. It also has a beautifully carved head, which was entirely hand-carved using knife work. This bow by Elgin Sartori is a classic example from one of the most innovative makers of the 20th century. When the bow is turned, a stamp on the shaft can be seen. The value of the classic violin is estimated to be
The value of your violin is between $3,000 and $4,000.
The value of the bow, although it was purchased to accompany the violin, is probably worth
Probably for $100.
In a retail setting, this entire ensemble is worth a substantial amount of
Is worth at a retail violin shop $14,000 to $15,000 today.
Holy smokes. When was the bow made?
Late 1940s.
No kidding.
Before us stands a violin that once belonged to a guest's great aunt, who tragically passed away as a child around the turn of the century. What strikes the appraiser is that this violin, like so many others, is covered in dust. It has bug larvae in the case, and the case is falling apart, which suggests it has been abandoned for years.
This is an interesting violin. This is not your standard violin that gets abandoned in a house and is actually worth nothing.
The case was last opened several weeks ago for inspection and secure storage.
Was your Aunt Helen a player?
She was a musician and an artist. She did a lot of work at Walt Disney Studios, and I know she played the saxophone. I didn't know she played the violin.
However, the back of the violin features a beautiful, rich red varnish. It is a beautiful varnish, and the craftsmanship is truly exquisite. The label inside says Carl Becka, Chicago, 1935, made for William Lewis & Son.
Grandfather was a maker. His son is a violin maker. His grandchildren are violin makers, and this is a really significant professional quality violin.
Carl Becka was one of the most significant violin makers to work in the United States. The label is accurate as it indicates the year 1935. At the time it was purchased, it would have sold for around $350 to $375. In a retail setting, this violin is estimated to be worth a significant amount of.
This is a violin that's worth $25,000 to $30,000.
Oh my God. Thank you, Aunt Helen.
As a relic of a bygone age, this vintage violin offers a fascinating glimpse into the social and cultural context of its time, with its beauty and craftsmanship transcending the boundaries of history. The violin's provenance includes a personal connection to the guest's family, specifically their grandmother, who played the instrument with great passion. As it turns out, the guest's grandmother picked up this amazing violin while on a grand tour of Europe with her family.
It's interesting, part of the story, she's purchased this, or her family has purchased this instrument in Italy and then brought it back to the United States.
With evident enthusiasm, the appraiser draws attention to the violin's Italian attributes, showcasing its unique features and heritage. Furthermore, the meticulous attention to detail observed in the F-holes is similarly evident on the violin's back, underscoring the maker's commitment to excellence.
Edge work around the outer bouts, and as it approaches the corners, it actually scoops out. Typical Italian style.
The subtle, thinly applied varnish on this instrument is consistent with 19th century craftsmanship, providing a key indicator of its age.
I'm going to say 1810, 1820 in that period.
In the realm of violin making, few names shine as brightly as Johannes B. Serti, the visionary craftsman who breathed life into this breathtaking masterpiece. As a child, Serti would watch in awe as local luthiers worked their magic, entranced by the sweet scent of varnish and soft glow of workshop lanterns, knowing his destiny lay among the shavings and strings. Under the guidance of Cremona's master craftsman, Johannes honed his skills, learning the ancient secrets of violin making. As Johannes' talents blossomed, so did his reputation. Musicians from across Europe flocked to Cremona, seeking instruments that would elevate their art. Today, Johannes B. Serti's instruments are treasured by collectors and musicians alike. With its amazing history tied to Johannes B. Serti and being in such great shape, this violin is worth.
I'd give it an estimate of between $18,000 and I'd probably say $26,000, somewhere in that range at auction.
Wow, wonderful.
A hidden treasure with a fascinating history, this violin carries a legacy of artistry, mystery, and unexpected revelations. This violin, once belonging to the guest's great-aunt Marie, is accompanied by her photograph and a bill of sale from the Rudolph Wurlitzer Company in Cincinnati, dated September 27, 1921. Rudolph Wurlitzer is an American novelist and screenwriter. The bill attests that this violin, purchased for a hefty sum of $1,000, was originally believed to be a Camille Camilli from 1737, made in Mantua, Italy.
I'm not going to say it's in tough shape, because all of these things can be cleaned up.
However, despite its impressive origin, the strings have long since broken, as they were made of gut and the violin hasn't been played in years. The craftsmanship, though, is remarkable, with fine details that speak to the Mantua school of violin making. Mantua, located just a half-day stagecoach ride from Cremona, where Stradivarius worked, was home to many skilled luthiers.
So the makers of Mantua were very influenced by Stradivarius and almost equaled his level of work in the later 18th century.
Among its notable features is the finely carved spruce top, which displays a characteristic flat and full arch typical of Mantua's powerful style.
It's a beautiful sound that projects very, very far.
The back of the violin is crafted from wood known as Ohio in northern Italy, and the curls in the grain further highlight its quality.
Very, very closely in the Italian style. It's a little bit rugged. We see some texture on the surface from the tool marks. It's a very high-quality violin.
Despite these exquisite details, the violin is not a genuine Camilli, but rather a very fine forgery.
They try to attend to every detail in it, right down to the label, which reads, Camillus Camilli, Fecit, Mantua, 1737, and it's written in Latin.
The bow, though rough in shape, is made of Pernambuco wood and bears the barely discernible stamp, Caressa and Francais Paris. Caressa and Francais was a prestigious Parisian shop, renowned for employing some of the best French bow makers of the time. The design details of the bow, such as the rounded ferrule and the unique front style, point to Claude Thomassin, one of the leading bow makers of the 20th century. While this violin may not be the masterpiece it once was thought to be, it still holds considerable value.
Also see that it has a certain registration number that corresponds to the Wurlitzer Company's certificate.
At auction, the violin would be valued at $6,000 to $8,000.
It was between $6,000 to $8,000.
And the bow, given its condition, would fetch a similar price of.
That is about $6,000 to $8,000.